Oh my god, this game is actually longer than the first one. Oh, but is that a good thing? Let's find out.
Getting into things a little faster than usual, I see.
Yeah.
Hey!
Hey, sorry. I'm just actually a little tired. I haven't slept all night. And, I guess it's my own damn fault, so...
You give him one compliment and he just runs with it.
And now we get to Darksiders 2, which is the swan song of developer Vigil Games and publisher THQ. Which, I like THQ for the most part. I would never put swan song next to another publisher like EA because, well, even toward their downward spiral, THQ never did the bad shit that like the EA shit that the EA shit did like Ubisoft shit. For the most part, THQ was relatively, which explains why they went bankrupt. Darksiders 2 was released on the 14th of August 2012 with a remaster done by Gunfire Games and published by THQ Nordic, who we will get to in my Darksiders 3 review. Anyway, now for the remaster, which was released on October 27th, 2015, and just like with the first game, this is the version I will be playing in the review. Only difference is that I will be sitting here instead of there because I have set up a gaming computer to the computer over here, so that my fat ass can relaxed on my favorite. That computer is left streaming and editing, which, speaking of computer, these are the specs that are running this game at 1080p 60 fps. I'm running a Skylake i7 6700K alongside a GTX 1080 and 16 gigs of RAM. The game ran buttery smooth at 60 fps aside from the 2 crashes I had and a weird bug when I got to the end part of the game where dialogue just started skipping for some reason.
What of the key?
I had to restart the game to make it run normally again. I did not have much trouble otherwise. Actually, this was the first game that made me wish YouTube supported higher frame rates. I mean, the combat in this game looks so freaking good at 60 FPS, I would have loved to have played it at higher frame rates. Now, assuming the grammar is right, notice I said I would love to have had played this. Whatever I said, I meant by that if I was presented with the opportunity to play the game again at higher frame rates, I would choose not to play this game again. Which, I know that this is the fan favorite in this series, so, don't declare war on me yet. Our strife does not need a death mark, so, wait to hear my side of the story, well, the game story and my opinion on the game before you unleash your fury on me. God help me. So, the story. Well, I know the basic plot, which is really impressive for a dum-dum like me. The story is divided into 2 simple parts that play in conjunction with each other throughout the gameplay. Part 1, which is continuing from the first game, Death is set out on a journey to prove War's innocence, because if you remember in the first game, the Council accused War of breaking the 7th seal, which led to the extinction of mankind. I am oversimplifying the story, and there is so much more to it than that for those of you who have not watched a review of the first game, but that's the basic plot of the first game. And so in the second game, Death wants to prove his brother's innocence by resurrecting the entirety of mankind. Death, what a good brother. I mean, really, this guy, or Nephilim I should say, takes a path that is riddled with various kinds of enemies and monsters, a shit ton of awesome parkour, and a whole bunch of puzzles. Puzzle after puzzle after puzzle. After freaking puzzle. And for some reason, they always seem to come in a set, like a set of 3s. They're never just like puzzle and move on. Now, part 2 of the story deals with Death's own struggle of killing his own people alongside the other Horsemen. It is implied that for one reason or another, slaughtering his own people seems to have affected him the most, which is really ironic, considering that out of the 4 Horsemen, he is the one known as Death. Now, before we go into how the game handles both story parts, we have to break down how the game handles the story in general. In an action game such as this, story is generally done in one of 3 ways. Most games go the God of War route, where in the span of every 20 to 30 minutes, there will be a cutscene that either introduces something new to the plot to keep the pace up, or a cutscene that reinforces the main character's personal goal in the story. Now, this is usually done to artificially boost the excitement you feel while playing the game. The second way that a game like this would handle its story is like Dark Souls, where very little is told to the player and it's up to you to figure out the rest of the story. And now we get to the third way generally games in this genre tell its story, which is the RPG Zelda way, and this is the method that Darksiders 2 chose, and personally for me, in a game like this, I much prefer either of the other 2 ways. And especially with how Darksiders 2 handles its other elements, I don't think the way way it tells its story is for the better, because you see, almost everything about this game is better than the first game. The combat is so much more dynamic and fun, the game looks amazing, so much more detailed than the first one, and the game now just looks like a proper 7th gen title. The soundtrack is glorious. I mean, seriously, this game might just have one of the best soundtracks I have ever heard, and it fixed the issues I had in the first game about the environments. I mean, the game starts you out in the snow, and in less than an hour, you are in a freaking forest. But two aspects of the first game that I thought were meh were changed from meh to bad in the second game, which unfortunately affected all the good aspects of the second game. And you know, as you heard me rant in my first review of the first game, which, you know, the game was 10 to 12 hours long, this game is like 15 hours long, even longer if you decide to do everything in the game, which couple that with the story. For a 16-hour game, can I ask, why the hell could I only remember a handful of characters? I swear to God, I couldn't tell you most of the story elements that I saw in this game because almost every plot device introduced in this game, whether it be a character or an event, felt like it was put there to pad out the game out instead of enhancing it. And that's why I put these two aspects together. It's because they affect each other in a very specific way. The game's unnecessary length coupled with how the story was told. I swear, half the time I have no clue what's going on. The story elements are either so far apart, uninteresting, or just feel like they're there to pad out the gameplay. If I were to pull up some random gameplay footage right now from my computer and put it on screen, I will not be able to tell you why is it I'm doing what I'm doing on the gameplay footage. I mean, feel free to call me stupid if you want, guilty as charged, but you know, in a game like God of War 2, for example, shit happens, like they make shit happen because they want the events and characters to connect to the you. I mean, in that single game, all this shit happens. All that helps you to feel like you are part of a narrative, but in Darksiders 2, it doesn't matter if Death is talking about saving his brother or about how he feels about killing all his kin. That shit just blends together into a story that just comes off as uninteresting. The story reflects on the gameplay as well. Almost every area in the game splits into 2 or 3 ways because you either need to collect or activate a 3 of something, or some crap like that, which makes the game feel very monotonous. Because I get to an area, solve its core puzzle, say to myself, ah, that was fun, what's next? Well, there is no next. You have to do the same thing multiple times, just slightly altered. I get that the puzzles are supposed to build on one another, but it doesn't work. This was present in the first game, overdone in the second game, and made fun of in the third game.
So, 3 swords total?
So it seems.
It's always 3, isn't it?
Pardon?
3 keys, 3 stones, 3 swords. Rather predictable, don't you think?
Have you lost your mind?
See what I mean? This type of dungeon design never appealed to me. What's worse is that it makes the fun combat in this game look bad when it's not. I loved using all the different weapons you pick up in the game. You get a secondary weapon almost the moment you kill your first enemy. And surprisingly, it's all stuff that's useful and it's stuff that adds depth to the gameplay. Not to mention the Reaper transformation, kills and all that jazz. Was really fun despite the stuff that I mentioned. In fact, the only time the game finds a balance in the way that it, made it really good was near the end where you are told to get 2 keys that will help you open the door to the Well of Souls, which is the location that is needed to, resurrect all of humanity. A key is in heaven and a key is in hell, and aside from that laborious journey back to Earth, both areas were handled perfectly. They introduced dynamic gameplay mechanics, took the perfect amount of time to beat, and both ended with a kick-ass boss fight, with the fight with Samael being one of my favorites. Vigil Games sure do know how to make a boss fight, but before that, holy hell. Remember how I said after the snow area they send you to a forest? Well, guess what? You're gonna spend like 5 hours in that forest and then another 5 hours in the underworld before you finally get to the awesome part that I mentioned. Now don't get me wrong, Darksiders 2 does a lot of stuff right in the first 10 hours that I just complained about, whether be it game design, boss fights, or music composition. It's all stuff that I enjoyed. I suppose now is a perfect time to talk about the movement in this game. It's bloody perfect. They took worse movement in the previous game and damn near perfected it in this one. The whole running, jumping, climbing feels so damn good and smooth. It's like Assassin's Creed, only difference being that in Darksiders you are actually the one doing everything and not the game doing it for you. And it feels so damn good. But the problem for me at least that stops the game from reaching its full potential are interesting events that are supposed to keep you engaged don't happen enough to keep you interested in what's going on. At least 4 to 5 hours of my entire time playing this game, I just felt like I was going through the motion of solving a puzzle, going there and doing that because, well, that's what the game wants me to do. Now, if you forget about the main story for a second and talk about all the extra shit the game wants you to do, which, woof, this is a huge game with a whole ton of stuff, all the way from weapons, unique armors, and side quest items that you can collect. Now, I didn't do a whole lot of those because, well, now normally in other games, stuff like collectibles, I usually only collect them if I'm really engaged in the story, that even side stuff make me more interested, like the dead drops in Infamous or item descriptions in Dark Souls and more. But in Darksiders 2, all that extra stuff is cool and all, and might make the game easier, but considering everything, in this game in particular, I'm not really that interested in doing any extra stuff. Now again, I much like the first game, I really don't like that I'm coming off like I hate the game or something, because I really don't. There's a lot of things about this game that I like. I like the graphics, the combat is fun, the soundtrack is glorious, and admittedly, a lot of the puzzles are pretty cool, along with the amazing like acrobatic traversal-y things. So yeah, but unfortunately, the way this whole thing is put together makes most of the game, to me, feel like it's a chore. So even though this game is like, it's better than the first game, if I was forced to play one of the two games, I hate to say this, but I would pick the first game. For the simple reason, it's shorter, so by the time I beat the first game, people who are playing the second game will have just gotten to this part of the game. Yeah, anyways, if my review left a sour taste in your mouth, then you should stick around for the Darksiders 3 review because I'm pretty sure it's gonna make you happy. Well, no spoilers, just, you know, I'm gonna be uploading a Darksiders 3 review. Anyways, it's really late and it's time for me to go to sleep. So I'll probably see you guys, I don't know, like in a few days, tomorrow, after tomorrow, I'm gonna go to bed. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. So for those of you who are watching, wherever you may be in this world, thank you guys for watching. And stay alive until the next video.